Let's just put it out there. Is the traditional marketing funnel dead? You know, the one drawn on literally every single business school whiteboard for decades? Think about it for a second. The way we all research and buy has completely radically changed. So why are we still banking on this simple, straight-line funnel? Let's get into it.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tearing down that old school funnel and swapping it out for something entirely different: the dynamic, non-linear customer journey framework. If you want to understand how modern competitive advantage is actually built from the ground up, well, you're absolutely in the right place.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We'll be covering the death of the funnel, the web-like journey, proactive design, mastering the loyalty loop, and then wrapping up with mapping and measuring success.
Section 1. The death of the funnel and the end of information scarcity.
So for most of the 20th century, marketing was completely anchored to the AIDA model. Awareness, interest, desire, action. It was basically a gravity-fed funnel, and honestly, it worked brilliantly. But it only worked because it was built for an environment of information scarcity. Back then, marketers controlled the channels. They dictated the flow of information through TV and print, and consumers predictably filtered down to the narrow end. But looking at the digital reality today, those old assumptions have been totally dismantled. Today's landscape is non-linear. It's wildly customer-centric, focusing on the entire life cycle, not just that one single moment of conversion. Basically, the customer, not the firm, is now the one dictating the path.
Which brings us to Section 2, the web-like customer journey, representing a really massive conceptual shift.
Okay, I want you to picture a web instead of a pipe. The modern customer journey is this complex, interconnected web of interactions. And here's the kicker. Many of these interactions happen completely outside of a company's direct control. Think about it. A customer might see an ad, read a peer review on a totally different site, get served an algorithmic recommendation, and watch an influencer video all before they ever even land on your actual storefront. They're bouncing seamlessly between physical and digital channels. You're no longer just pushing people down a rigid tube, you are trying to surround them in a dynamic, socially embedded web.
Now, what's really interesting about this conceptual shift is the structural difference. Think about the traditional funnel. It's linear and firm-centric. It's entirely about what the company wants. But the journey? It's cyclical, and it's built around the customer. More importantly, consider the scope. The funnel basically stops dead right at the point of purchase. Boom, done. The journey framework, on the other hand, stretches all the way from pre-purchase right through to long-term advocacy.
But how do you actually measure success in this massive new web? Well, we see a radical shift here too. The funnel is stubbornly fixated on conversion with almost zero post-purchase emphasis. But in a journey-centric strategy, measurement involves multi-stage KPIs across paid, owned, earned, and partner channels. The whole shebang. And that post-purchase phase, it is absolutely not an afterthought. It's a completely integral part of the strategy, which we'll explore in just a second when we talk about loyalty loops.
Moving on to Section 3, designing proactive customer journeys. This is where we shift gears from theory right into practice.
Look, the most successful brands today don't just sit back and react to how customers behave. They lead them. They actively manage the journey like it's a product itself. To actually pull this off, firms have to simultaneously build 4 interconnected capabilities. First, automation streamlines the manual steps. Then, proactive personalization instantly customizes the experience using past data. Contextual interaction makes sure you're delivering the exact right message based on exactly where the customer currently is in their journey. And finally, journey innovation means continuously evolving this entire process. Think about a brand like Sephora. They successfully transitioned to this exact kind of design. They take a customer's past purchase data and physical store visits, and they instantly customize the app homepage to recommend complementary products. When you combine these 4 elements together, you build a structural competitive moat that is literally incredibly difficult for competitors to replicate.
Now, the digital environment generates an absolutely staggering amount of behavioral data. Every single click, every pause on a video, every time someone abandons a cart. So your obstacle really isn't a lack of data. The true strategic challenge is real-time integration. It's taking all that fragmented, messy data and assembling a single, unified view of the customer across every single channel. Because without that integration, those proactive capabilities we just talked about, they're basically impossible to execute, and your marketing budget just can't be allocated optimally.
All right, let's look at Section 4, Mastering the Loyalty Loop. This is truly the modern post-purchase battleground.
Here is exactly where the traditional funnel failed spectacularly. It completely neglected what happens after the credit card is swiped. The loyalty loop is this almost miraculous post-purchase mechanism. When it's designed correctly, it allows a customer to completely bypass the evaluation stage the very next time they need your product. They don't weigh their options, they don't go Googling competitors. Just like a consumer who completely relies on Amazon Prime or Starbucks Rewards, they just buy from you again. It's a habit. And this dramatically reduces your customer acquisition costs while sending their lifetime value absolutely through the roof.
But, and this is crucial, these loops do not just happen by accident. They have to be meticulously engineered. Compelling post-purchase journeys rely on things like proactive onboarding, making sure the customer gets real value on day one. It means serving up personalized recommendations that actually add value to their life, structured rewards, and honestly, flawless service recovery when things inevitably go wrong. If you can master this whole sequence, you turn a first-time buyer into a habitual, fiercely loyal customer who is highly resistant to switching to a competitor.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Mapping and Measuring Success. Let's open up the practitioner's playbook.
Let's see how this builds into an actionable, step-by-step strategy you can actually use. First up, map before you market. You have to do the empirical research to see how customers actually navigate to and beyond a purchase. Second, design for the right archetype. Don't just automatically optimize for effortlessness if your product is really all about discovery or challenge. Third, prioritize seamless data and message integration over simply trying to be present on every single channel. Actually, inconsistency hurts you way more than absence does. And fourth, as we literally just discussed, aggressively invest in that post-purchase loyalty loop.
Of course, to execute this, you have to measure it correctly. And that means completely abandoning the old fixation on just bottom-of-the-funnel conversions. You need granular KPIs for every single stage of the web. Watch engaged visits to gauge brand discovery. Track trial signups for consideration. And sure, definitely look at purchase conversions, but please don't stop there. Measure net promoter scores for satisfaction and track repeat purchase rates to prove your loyalty loop is actually working. Doing this provides a complete, panoramic view of your entire journey performance.
I want to leave you with this really powerful, kind of provocative thought from the research. In the digital age, the journey is not just the path to the sale, it is the product itself. Let that sink in for a moment. Your customer's digital journey is now your actual product. If a competitor's web is easier to navigate than your funnel, they aren't just out-marketing you, they are out-producting you. So are you ready to stop funneling and start building the web? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.